The massive lecture hall fell silent as Commander Vextar stepped up to the holographic display. 300 alien officers from across the galaxy sat in perfect rows, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes in the dim blue light. Some had scales that shimmered like metal, others had skin that looked like smooth stone. A few floated in the air inside transparent bubbles filled with gas. All of them were the best military minds their species could offer. All of them had spent 3 months learning about one simple topic: how to destroy humanity. "Today we conclude our study," Vextar announced, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. His reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. "The primitive species known as humans will soon be removed from the galaxy." The hologram behind him showed a small blue and green planet spinning slowly in space. Earth looked so peaceful from this distance, so harmless. Vextar touched a control pad and the image changed. Now it showed grainy footage of human soldiers, fighting on muddy battlefields. The aliens watched as humans shot at each other with crude projectile weapons. "Observe their primitive nature," Vextar said. "They fight among themselves constantly. Their own planet is divided into hundreds of small territories. They cannot even agree on a single form of government." Several alien officers made sounds of disgust. The ethereal beings floating in their gas bubbles pulsed with dim colors. The rock-like architects shifted their heavy forms in specially built seats. "Their technology is laughably backward," Vextar continued. "They still burn fossil fuels for energy. Their fastest ships cannot even reach the next star system. They discovered nuclear weapons only recently and immediately used them against their own species." More footage played. Humans in primitive spacesuits working outside small metal stations. Human vehicles that moved on wheels instead of floating. Human cities that sprawled across the landscape instead of rising gracefully into the sky like proper civilization. "Most telling of all," Vextar said with satisfaction, "they are ruled entirely by emotion. Fear, anger, hatred, and greed drive every decision they make. They have no logic, no discipline, no honor." In the back corner of the lecture hall, a figure in gray maintenance clothes continued mopping the floor. The aliens paid him no attention. Janitors were invisible to important beings. The human slave named Lee Junho kept his head down and worked slowly, as he had done for months. But his ears caught every word. Junho had been a submarine commander in the Korean Navy before first contact went wrong. When the alien ships appeared over Earth 2 years ago, humanity tried to negotiate. The talks lasted exactly 6 hours before the Confederation declared humans too primitive for membership in galactic society. Some humans were taken as slaves to work in alien facilities. Junho found himself assigned to clean the floors and empty the waste units at the most prestigious military academy in known space. The aliens saw him as barely more than a cleaning robot. That had been their first mistake. The human elimination. "We'll proceed in 3 phases, Vextar explained to his eager students. "First, we destroy their orbital installations and ground-based defenses with long-range bombardment. Second, we eliminate their major population centers. Third, we conduct surface operations to remove any survivors." A young officer from the crystalline hives raised one of her forearms. "Commander, our intelligence suggests humans have some combat experience. Should we not expect resistance?" Vextar laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "Lieutenant Krikstal, you worry about nothing. Yes, humans fight constantly, but only against other humans using primitive weapons. They have never faced proper military technology. Their largest explosive devices are barely sufficient to damage a single Confederation scout ship." The hologram changed again, showing detailed battle plans, fleet positions, attack vectors, timing schedules. Junho memorized every detail while pretending to struggle with a stubborn stain on the floor. "The operation will require exactly 47 hours, Vextar continued. "We will use 300 ships from the combined fleets. Each ship alone possesses enough firepower to crack a small moon. Against primitive humans, it will be less a battle than a simple cleaning operation." Some of the alien students made approving sounds. Others asked technical questions about orbital mechanics and weapon deployment. None of them questioned whether exterminating an entire species was right or wrong. Junho had learned this about the Confederation over the past months. They divided all life into categories. Advanced species deserved respect and protection. Primitive species were obstacles to be removed when convenient. Humans had been classified as Class 7 primitives, not even worth keeping as slaves except for the most basic labor. "Sir," called out another student, this one from the slug-like mollusk empire, "what if the humans attempt to negotiate or surrender?" "Irrelevant," Vexitar replied immediately. "Our xenobiologists have determined that humans are incapable of true civilization. They breed too quickly, consume resources without planning, and spread conflict wherever they go. The galaxy will be safer and cleaner without them." The lecture continued for another hour. Vexitar showed detailed intelligence reports about Earth's defenses. He displayed psychological profiles of human leaders. He even had captured video recordings of human news broadcasts, showing the panic and confusion that followed first contact. Throughout it all, Junho cleaned. He moved like an old man broken by years of hard labor. His shoulders stayed slumped. His movements remained slow and careful. The aliens dismissed him so completely that several times they discussed classified information while he worked directly beside them. When the lecture finally ended, the alien officers filed out in small groups, chattering excitedly about their upcoming deployment. Most would serve on ships in the Extermination fleet. They would witness the end of humanity firsthand. Junho finished mopping and began collecting the waste containers from around the lecture hall. This was his favorite part of the job because it gave him access to the disposal systems. More importantly, it gave him access to the data networks that ran through the Academy's infrastructure. The aliens had never bothered to secure their systems against human intrusion. Why would they? Humans barely understood their own primitive computer networks, much less advanced Confederation technology. They had no idea that Junho had spent his entire adult life working with military electronics. Submarine warfare required understanding complex systems under extreme pressure. The skills translated surprisingly well to alien technology. Over the past months, while pretending to be a simple janitor, Junho had mapped the Academy's entire computer network. He knew which systems connected to the communication arrays. He understood how information flowed between different security levels. Most importantly, he had identified a way to access the quantum transmission systems that carried messages across the galaxy. Tonight, he would put that knowledge to use. As Junho pushed his cleaning cart toward the service tunnels, he allowed himself one small smile. The aliens had spent 3 months learning everything they thought they needed to know about humanity, but they had never bothered to learn the most important lesson of all. Humans were much better at listening than anyone gave them credit for, and now, thanks to their arrogance, Junho knew exactly when and how they planned to destroy his homeworld. The Academy's course on human extermination was finished. The alien students would graduate tomorrow and join the fleet that would carry death to Earth. But first, Junho had some messages to send. The service tunnels beneath the Academy ran for kilometers in every direction. Junho moved through them like a ghost, pushing his maintenance cart along the narrow pathways. The aliens had built these tunnels for their robot servants, never imagining that a human slave would use them to map their most secure facilities. During his months of work, Junho had learned things that would have shocked his captors. The Galactic Confederation was not the unified empire they pretended to be. Cracks ran deep through their alliance, and many species had serious doubts about the human extermination project. The ethereal collective considered it unnecessary murder. These beings of pure energy believed all life deserved a chance to grow and develop. They had voted against the extermination in the Confederation Council, but their voice carried little weight in military matters. The Silicon architects viewed the project as wasteful. These rock-like creatures thought in terms of millions of years. To them, humans were simply a young species that might become useful given enough time. Why destroy potential resources? Even some members of the dominant military species had concerns. Junho had overheard private conversations between officers from the aquatic depths. They worried that destroying primitive species set a dangerous precedent. What happened when the Confederation decided another member species was too troublesome? But these doubts meant nothing against the combined pressure of the Draconian Empire, the insectoid swarms, and the mechanical collectives. These three military powers controlled most of the Confederation's warships. They had pushed the extermination vote through by promising quick victory and rich salvage from human space. Junho reached his destination, a maintenance access point for the Academy's primary data processing center. The heavy door bore warning signs in 12 different alien languages. All of them basically said the same thing. Authorized personnel only, death to intruders. The aliens had never bothered to add human language to their warnings. Junho opened his toolkit and began working. On the door's lock mechanism, his fingers moved with the practiced skill of someone who had spent years maintaining complex systems in the tight spaces of military submarines. The alien security lock was actually simpler than most of the systems on his old ship. The door slid, open with a soft whisper. Inside, rows of quantum processors hummed with barely contained energy. Data flowed through crystalline conduits that pulsed with rainbow light. The room maintained perfect temperature and humidity for optimal computing performance. To most humans, it would have looked like alien magic. To Junho, it looked like a very advanced computer server room. He had spent weeks studying these systems during his cleaning duties. The Confederation used quantum entanglement to send information instantly across vast distances. Messages could travel from one end of the galaxy to the other in seconds. The technology was far beyond human understanding, but the basic principles were familiar enough. Every computer network had weak points. Every system had maintenance protocols. Every security setup had blind spots that the designers never considered. Aliens had made their networks secure against other advanced civilizations. They had protection against quantum hacking, dimensional intrusion, and temporal manipulation. Their firewalls could stop attacks from beings that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, but they had never considered attacks from primitive humans who still used binary code. Junho connected his improvised datapad to a maintenance port. The device looked like a collection of scrap metal and recycled components, which was exactly what it was. He had built it from broken cleaning robots, discarded memory cores, and spare parts from a dozen different alien machines. The Confederation's security systems scanned his device and classified it as harmless maintenance equipment, just another tool used by a primitive slave to perform simple tasks. That was their second major mistake. Junho's fingers flew across the improvised interface. He had spent months memorizing the Academy's network architecture. He knew which data streams carried classified information. He understood how the communication protocols worked. Most importantly, he had discovered something the aliens never suspected. The Confederation had thousands of human slaves scattered across the galaxy. They worked in mines, factories, shipyards, and research stations. The aliens saw them as barely intelligent animals, useful only for the most basic labor. But Junho had access to the personnel records. He knew their names, locations, and work assignments. More importantly, he had begun to suspect that many of these primitive slaves might be far more capable than their captors realized. The quantum communication array came online under his control. Junho began composing his message, encoding it, in simple human text that would look like random noise to alien monitoring systems. The message was short and direct. Academy course complete. Extermination fleet launches in 6 days. Earth attack begins in 18 days. Full battle plans attached. Coordinate response, signal received by replying with maintenance report format 7. He included everything. Fleet composition, attack, vectors, timing schedules, weapon specifications, and tactical plans. 3 months of alien military planning compressed into a single data packet. Then Junho did something that would have terrified the aliens if they had understood what was happening. He transmitted the message simultaneously to every human slave. Location in the Confederation database. Mining facilities received it first. The quantum signals reached asteroid belts where humans operated excavation equipment under alien supervision. Foundry workers on industrial worlds got the message while smelting metal for Confederation warships. Agricultural slaves working alien food production facilities found it waiting in their basic communication systems. The message spread through human populations that the aliens had dismissed as irrelevant. Ship maintenance crews received it aboard, Confederation vessels. Construction workers building orbital platforms downloaded it through their equipment interfaces. Even humans working in alien research laboratories picked up the transmission through their laboratory systems. Within hours, responses began flowing back to Junho's improvised receiver. Each message looked like a routine maintenance report to alien monitoring systems. Work completion notices, equipment status updates, supply requests, and repair schedules. But encoded in the mundane language was something that would have shocked the Confederation leadership. Confirmation that hundreds of skilled humans were already in position throughout their infrastructure. Kim Sora confirmed receipt from her posting aboard the dreadnought, Eternal Victory. She had been working as an engine maintenance specialist for 8 months, dismissed by the crew as too primitive to understand their advanced systems. Park Taiho responded from Mining Station 7 in the Outer Rim. The aliens thought he was a simple laborer operating excavation robots. They had no idea he had been a mining engineer before capture. Han Minji sent word from Communication Relay Station 12. To her alien supervisors, she was just a technician who cleaned the equipment. They never suspected she understood exactly how their quantum transmission systems worked. The responses kept coming. Former pilots, engineers, soldiers, scientists, and technicians. Humans who had been captured during first contact and scattered across the galaxy as slave labor. The aliens had never bothered to check their backgrounds or skills. Another critical mistake. Junho smiled as he read the incoming messages. Each response included information about local systems, security weaknesses, and potential sabotage opportunities. His fellow humans had been watching, learning, and preparing just as he had. The aliens had spent 3 months teaching their military officers how to destroy humanity. But they had also spent 3 months with hundreds of humans working inside their most critical facilities. Now those same humans were coordinating a response that would turn the Confederation's own infrastructure against them. As Junho began composing detailed instructions for each location, he reflected on the fundamental error the aliens had made. They assumed that primitive meant stupid. They believed that technological inferiority meant incompetence. They had never considered that humans might be very good at adapting to new situations, or that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. The quantum array hummed with activity as messages flowed back and forth across the galaxy. To any alien monitoring system, it looked like normal maintenance chatter between slave installations. In reality, it was humanity's military command network coming online. The aliens had finished their course on human extermination. Now it was time for humans to teach them about human survival. Kim Sora wiped the grease from her hands and stared at the message glowing on her repair tablet. Around her, the engine room of the Confederation dreadnought Eternal Victory hummed with the power of a small star. Massive fusion reactors fed energy into weapon systems that could crack planets in half. For 8 months, the alien crew had watched her crawl through maintenance tunnels and repair damaged systems. They saw a primitive human who barely understood the equipment she worked on. They had no idea she had been the chief engineer on a Korean naval destroyer before her capture. The message from Junho was clear. The extermination fleet would launch in 4 days. Her ship would be part of the force that destroyed Earth, unless she did something about it. Sora looked around the engine compartment. Dozens of alien crew members moved between the massive machines, monitoring displays and adjusting controls. They trusted her to maintain their systems because maintenance work was beneath the notice of advanced beings. That trust was about to become their downfall. She opened her toolkit and began walking toward the primary fusion reactor. The aliens paid her no attention. Just another primitive slave doing primitive work. Sora had spent months studying the ship's systems while pretending to struggle with simple repairs. The Confederation built their technology to be reliable and self-repairing, but every system had limits. Every design had weak points. She reached the reactor's control junction and began removing access panels. Her hands moved with practiced skill, disconnecting primary circuits and rerouting power flows. To casual observation, it looked like routine. maintenance. In reality, she was introducing a cascade failure that would build slowly over the next several days. The reactor would continue operating normally until the ship entered combat. Then, when the weapon systems drew maximum power, the damaged circuits would overload. The ship would lose main power at the worst possible moment. 300 light-years away, Park Tae-ho received his instructions while standing in the control room of Mining Station 7. The facility processed raw materials for Confederation shipbuilding, turning asteroid rock into the hull plates and structural components that made their warships. Tae-ho had convinced his alien supervisors that he was a simple laborer who operated excavation robots. They never suspected that he understood metallurgy better than most of their engineers. For the past 6 months, he had been making tiny adjustments to the metal composition of hull plates destined for military vessels. Nothing obvious. Nothing that would show up in basic quality tests. But under extreme stress like weapons fire or rapid decompression, the altered metal would fracture along predictable lines. Now, Junho's message gave him specific ship names and hull serial numbers. Tae-ho smiled as he checked his production records. 15 ships in the Extermination fleet carried his modified armor plating. They would learn about human engineering skills the hard way. Across the galaxy, Han Minji sat in the communication center of Deep Space Relay Station 12. The massive facility boosted quantum signals between distant star systems, allowing the Confederation to coordinate military operations across thousands of light years. The alien staff treated her like a cleaning robot with legs. They let her work on equipment maintenance while they handled the important business of managing galactic communications. They had never bothered to check her background. Before capture, Minji had been a signals intelligence officer in the Korean military. She understood communication systems better than most of her alien supervisors. Over the past months, she had mapped every circuit and pathway in the relay station. She knew which signals carried military orders and which channels handled fleet coordination. More importantly, she had identified ways to introduce delays and errors into the communication stream. Following Junho's instructions, Minji began programming subtle glitches into the military communication protocols. Orders would be delayed by seconds or minutes. Status reports would arrive garbled. Coordination signals would be routed to the wrong recipients. During normal operations, the errors would be annoying but manageable. During combat, when split-second timing meant the difference between victory and defeat, the communication failures would be devastating. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of locations throughout Confederation space. Human slaves who had been dismissed as primitive laborers revealed skills their captors never suspected. Choi Hyun worked in the navigation center aboard the flagship Galactic Dominion. The aliens thought he was a simple technician who cleaned the stellar mapping equipment. They never realized he had been a submarine navigation officer who specialized in underwater warfare calculations. For months, Hyun had been studying the ship's navigation systems while pretending to struggle with basic maintenance tasks. He understood how the Confederation calculated hyperspace jumps and planned fleet movements. Now he began introducing tiny errors into the navigation databases. The mistakes were too small to detect during routine system checks, but when the fleet made its final jump to Earth's solar system, those small errors would compound into major problems. Instead of arriving in formation as planned, the ships would emerge from hyperspace scattered across a vast area. Some would arrive early, others late. A few might miss their target coordinates entirely. Lim Do-hyun had access to something even more critical: the weapon storage bays of battlecruiser Iron Fist. The aliens saw him as a maintenance worker who cleaned the antimatter containment units. They never suspected he understood explosive chemistry better than their own weapons specialists. Antimatter required perfect storage conditions. The slightest contamination could cause containment failure. Do-hyun had spent months learning exactly how much contamination each storage unit could handle before reaching critical failure levels. Following Junho's instructions, he began introducing microscopic impurities into the antimatter storage systems. Nothing that would cause immediate explosion. But when the weapons fired during combat, the contaminated antimatter would produce irregular energy outputs. Some shots would be weaker than expected. Others might overload the weapon systems entirely. A few might even cause feedback explosions that would damage the ships firing them. The pattern repeated throughout the Confederation fleet. Yoon Ji-won introduced cascading failures into power, distribution networks. Song Yoonbi programmed coordination delays into fire control systems. Lee Min-ho altered the mixture ratios in ship fuel supplies. Each sabotage operation looked like routine maintenance work. Each human slave appeared to be doing exactly what their alien masters expected. But beneath the surface, hundreds of skilled professionals were systematically undermining the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The aliens remained completely unaware that their primitive slaves possessed advanced technical knowledge. They continued preparing for what they believed would be an easy extermination operation. The Confederation leadership reviewed their battle plans with satisfaction. 300 warships against one primitive planet. The outcome seemed inevitable. But they had made a fundamental error in understanding human nature. They assumed that being conquered meant being defeated. They believed that slavery meant submission. They had never considered that humans might view captivity as an opportunity to learn enemy weaknesses from the inside. As the countdown continued toward the fleet's departure, the Human Resistance Network completed its preparations. Months of careful observation and patient planning were about to pay off in spectacular fashion. The aliens had taught them about Confederation technology, military doctrine, and strategic thinking. Now that education would be turned against its teachers. In communication centers, engine rooms, weapon bays, and navigation stations across the galaxy, human hands made final adjustments to critical systems. Each change was small and undetectable. Combined, they would turn the extermination fleet's strength into weakness. The Confederation was about to learn that enslaving skilled humans was like giving weapons to their enemies. They just had not realized it yet. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the greatest military force in galactic history prepare for departure. Through the massive viewing ports, he could see hundreds of warships arranged in perfect formation. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of Confederation military technology. The sight filled him with pride and confidence. 300 ships armed with planet-cracking weapons. Enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds like Earth. Against one primitive civilization, it was almost unfair. Almost. "All ships report ready for departure, Commander," announced his navigation officer, a crystalline being whose body sparkled with internal light. "The fleet awaits your orders." Vextar nodded with satisfaction. The timing was perfect. His academy course had prepared the officers well. Every ship captain understood their role in the extermination operation. The humans would be eliminated efficiently and completely. "Begin final departure sequence," he commanded. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump." Throughout the massive fleet, alien crews made their last preparations. Weapon systems came online. Navigation computers calculated jump coordinates. Communication arrays synchronized for fleet-wide coordination. None of them noticed the subtle problems beginning to develop in their systems. Aboard the dreadnought Eternal Victory, Kim Sora watched her sabotage work begin to take effect. The fusion reactor continued operating normally, but deep within its control circuits, damaged pathways were starting to show strain. The ship's computer systems registered everything as normal. The cascade failure was still hours away from becoming obvious. Sora moved through the engine compartments, performing her usual maintenance duties. The alien crew ignored her completely. To them, she was just another primitive slave doing work beneath their notice. They had no idea that their main power system was quietly destroying itself. In the weapons bay of battlecruiser Iron Fist, Lim Do-hyun made his final adjustments to the antimatter storage containers. The aliens trusted him to clean the containment units because maintenance work was too simple for advanced beings to worry about. They never suspected that he understood explosive chemistry better than their own weapons specialists. For months, Do-hyun had been introducing microscopic impurities into the antimatter storage systems. Nothing that would cause immediate explosion. But when the weapons fired during combat, the contaminated antimatter would produce irregular energy outputs. Some shots would be weaker than expected. Others might overload the weapon systems entirely. A few might even cause feedback explosions that would damage the ships firing them. In the navigation center of the flagship Galactic Dominion, Choi Hyun made his final adjustments to the stellar mapping databases. The errors he had introduced were incredibly subtle. Each navigation calculation would be off by tiny fractions of a degree. For short-range travel, the mistakes would be meaningless. But hyperspace jumps across hundreds of light years would magnify those small errors into major problems. Instead of arriving at Earth in tight formation, the fleet would be scattered across a vast area of space. Hyun continued cleaning the navigation equipment while alien officers worked around him. They discussed jump coordinates and timing schedules as if he was not there. To them, he was invisible. That invisibility was about to become their greatest weakness. Similar preparations were happening throughout the fleet. Yoon Ji-won had programmed cascade failures into power distribution networks. Song Yunbi had inserted coordination delays into communication systems. Han Minji had altered the fuel mixture ratios that would cause engine problems during extended operations. Each sabotage operation looked like routine maintenance work. Each human appeared to be doing exactly what their alien masters expected. But beneath the surface, hundreds of skilled professionals were systematically undermining the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The departure countdown reached its final stages. Ship after ship reported ready for hyperspace transit. Commander Vexistar felt the satisfaction of a plan coming together perfectly. "All ships prepare for jump," he announced across the fleet communication network. "Target, Sol system. Objective, complete human extermination. Execute in 10 seconds. The massive ships began to glow with hyperspace energy. Space itself seemed to bend around their hulls as they prepared to leap across impossible distances. 5 seconds, Vextar counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1, execute jump. The fleet vanished in brilliant flashes of light. But something went wrong immediately. Instead of emerging together in Earth's outer solar system, the ships appeared scattered across more than a light year of space. Some arrived hours early. Others were delayed by entire days. Several missed their target coordinates completely and had to recalculate their position. Commander Vextar found himself alone in empty space, with only a dozen other ships visible in the distance. His communications officer struggled to contact the rest of the fleet. "Sir, we are receiving scattered reports from other ships," the officer announced with confusion in his voice. "Many vessels are reporting navigation errors. They are arriving far from the planned coordinates." Vextar felt his first moment of uncertainty. Navigation errors were rare in Confederation fleets. Their stellar mapping was the most accurate in the galaxy. How could so many ships miss their target? "Order all ships to recalculate their positions and proceed to Earth immediately," he commanded. "We will reform the fleet in the target system." But the problems were just beginning. As ships throughout the scattered fleet attempted to regroup, other sabotage operations started revealing themselves. Vessels that had traveled for hours through hyperspace were discovering systems failures that made no sense. "Sir," reported the engineering officer aboard Vextar's flagship, "we are detecting power fluctuations in the main distribution grid. The patterns do not match any known failure modes. Run complete diagnostics," Vextar ordered. "I want to know what is causing these anomalies." Similar reports came in from ships throughout the fleet. Weapon systems showing contamination readings, communication arrays producing static and delays, navigation computers giving conflicting information about their positions. On every ship, alien officers struggled to understand what was happening to their perfectly maintained equipment. They ran diagnostic programs and called for technical specialists. Nothing made sense. The humans working among them continued their duties quietly. They cleaned equipment, performed maintenance tasks, and stayed invisible while their sabotage work revealed itself. Aboard the cruiser, Stellar Hammer, Park Min-jae watched alien technicians puzzle over power system failures he had programmed months earlier. The cascade errors would build slowly over the next few days, eventually causing complete power loss during combat operations. The aliens treated him like a simple cleaning robot. They discussed technical problems right in front of him, never suspecting that he understood their systems better than they did. On battlecruiser Void Striker, Lee Sun-hee monitored communication system delays she had carefully programmed into the ship's quantum arrays. Orders from Fleet Command would arrive seconds or minutes late. Status reports would be garbled or misrouted. During normal operations, the errors would be annoying but manageable. During combat, when split-second timing meant the difference between victory and defeat, the communication failures would be devastating. Throughout the scattered fleet, human saboteurs completed their final preparations. Each had spent months in their assigned positions, dismissed as primitive laborers while they systematically learned and undermined Confederation technology. Now that patience was about to pay off. "Sir," reported Vextar's sensor officer, "we are detecting the Sol system ahead. Earth should be visible in 6 hours." Vextar straightened with renewed confidence. Despite the navigation problems and system anomalies, his fleet was approaching the target. Once they engaged the primitive humans, all these technical difficulties would be forgotten. "Prepare all ships for combat operations," he ordered. "Begin final approach to Earth orbit." But as the scattered Confederation ships limped toward their target, they had no idea what was waiting for them. The delays caused by navigation errors had given Earth precious time to prepare. More importantly, the humans had not spent the past 2 years cowering in fear. They had been learning, adapting, and preparing a welcome that would shock the entire galaxy. The aliens were about to discover that underestimating human ingenuity was a mistake that could cost them everything. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the scattered alien fleet approach Earth on dozens of tactical displays. The past 2 years had been the most intense period in human history, but they had not been wasted. When the Confederation first arrived and declared humanity too primitive for galactic society, most world leaders had despaired. The aliens possessed technology that seemed like magic. Their smallest scout ships could destroy entire cities. Their knowledge of science was centuries ahead of human understanding. But a few humans had seen opportunity where others saw only defeat. Chen had been among them. As a former naval commander, she understood that superior technology meant nothing without proper strategy. The aliens were powerful, but they were also arrogant. Arrogance created vulnerabilities that clever opponents could exploit. "Ma'am," reported her intelligence officer, Major Kim Dehan, "we are receiving confirmed signals from our network agents. The sabotage operations are proceeding exactly as planned." Chen nodded with grim satisfaction. The network of enslaved humans throughout Confederation space had been their secret weapon from the beginning. Every human captured during first contact had been carefully selected for their technical expertise. The aliens thought they were taking random prisoners. In reality, they had unknowingly recruited their own saboteurs. "Status report on orbital." "Defenses," she requested. "All platforms operational," replied Colonel Park Ji-hyo from her position at the tactical station. "The hybrid weapon systems are performing beyond expectations. Our reverse-engineered particle beams are showing 95% effectiveness compared to original Confederation specifications." Chen allowed herself a moment of pride. In just 2 years, human engineers had accomplished what should have been impossible. Using captured alien technology and human ingenuity, they had built defensive systems that could actually challenge Confederation warships. The key had been understanding that alien technology was not magic. It was simply very advanced engineering. Every piece of equipment followed logical principles that human scientists could eventually understand and improve upon. "First contact in 18 minutes, announced the sensor operator. "Lead Confederation ships are approaching the outer defense perimeter." Chen opened a communication channel to Earth's orbital platforms and lunar installations. "All defensive units, this is command. Stand ready. Remember, we are not just fighting for Earth today. We are fighting to prove that humanity deserves a place in the galaxy." The response came from hundreds of human voices across the solar system. Orbital gun platforms, converted civilian ships, improvised missile batteries, and hybrid fighter squadrons. Every human who could hold a weapon or operate a system had volunteered for the defense of their home world. Meanwhile, aboard the Confederation, flagship Galactic Dominion, Commander Vextar was discovering that his perfect plan was falling apart in every possible way. "Sir," reported his communications officer with barely controlled panic, "we have lost contact with 60% of the fleet. The ships that are responding report multiple system failures across all major platforms." "How is that possible?" Vextar demanded. "Our equipment underwent complete maintenance checks before departure. Everything was functioning perfectly." He did not notice the human maintenance worker quietly cleaning equipment in the corner of the bridge. Choi Hyun continued his work with the same steady rhythm he had maintained for months, invisible to the aliens who saw him as nothing more than a cleaning tool. But Hyun was listening to every word, and he understood exactly why their systems were failing. The network of human saboteurs had spent months introducing tiny flaws into Confederation equipment. Each flaw was designed to manifest under the stress of combat operations. "Engineering reports cascade failures in the main power grid," announced another bridge officer. "Estimated time to complete power loss 4 hours. Weapons control shows antimatter contamination in 60% of our storage units," added the gunnery officer. "Firing solutions are becoming increasingly unreliable." Vextar felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear. His mighty fleet was destroying itself, and he had no idea why. "Continue the attack," he ordered desperately. "All ships are to engage human targets immediately. We will complete this operation despite our technical difficulties." The Confederation, ships that were still operational, opened fire on Earth's defensive installations. Massive energy beams lanced across space, carrying enough power to vaporize mountains. But instead of finding helpless targets, they discovered that humans had learned to fight back. Earth's orbital platforms returned fire with weapons that glowed, like captured starlight. Hybrid particle beams, reverse-engineered from captured alien technology, struck Confederation ships with devastating accuracy. The aliens watched in shock as their supposedly primitive opponents not only survived the first exchange of fire, but actually damaged several Confederation vessels. "Impossible," whispered Vextar, staring at his tactical display. "Their weapons are nearly as powerful as ours. How did they achieve such rapid technological advancement?" The answer was scattered across dozens of human facilities throughout the solar system. In the 2 years since first contact, every captured piece of alien equipment had been studied, analyzed, and reverse-engineered by human scientists working around the clock. Underground laboratories had dissected alien computers and learned to duplicate their quantum processing systems. Industrial complexes had rebuilt alien power cores and improved their efficiency. Weapons researchers had studied captured particle beams and found ways to make them even more destructive. But the real breakthrough had come from understanding alien psychology. The Confederation built their technology to be reliable and self-maintaining because they expected their equipment operators to follow established procedures exactly. Human engineers had redesigned everything to be adaptable and improvable because humans were always looking for better ways to do things. The result was defensive systems that could match Confederation weapons while being operated by crews who were willing to take risks that no alien would consider. "Incoming message from the lead human vessel," announced the communications officer aboard Vextar's ship. "Put it through," Vextar commanded, hoping to finally negotiate with the primitive humans. Instead, he found himself face to face with Admiral Chen, whose calm expression showed no fear of his massive warship. "Confederation fleet," Chen said in perfect galactic standard. "You are attacking a sovereign world without provocation. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Vextar could not believe what he was hearing. "Human, you are addressing the combined military might of the Galactic Confederation. Your primitive world cannot possibly stand against our superior technology." Chen smiled with cold confidence. "Commander, you are addressing a species that has spent 2 years learning everything your people could teach us. We know your weapons, your ships, and your tactics. More importantly, we know your weaknesses." As if to prove her point, another wave of Confederation ships emerged from hyperspace, only to discover their navigation systems were completely unreliable. Several ships collided with each other as their positioning computers gave contradictory readings. Your fleet is already defeating itself, Chen continued. Your equipment is failing because the humans you enslaved spent months sabotaging your most critical systems. Every ship in your fleet has been compromised from within. Vextar felt his world turning upside down. That is impossible. Our slaves are primitive beings incapable of understanding our technology. Your slaves were engineers, scientists, and military officers, Chen replied. You captured some of our most skilled people and then gave them unrestricted access to your most advanced systems. Did you really think they would just clean floors and empty waste bins? The truth hit Vexatar like a physical blow. The humans working throughout his fleet were not simple laborers. They were trained professionals who had been systematically studying and undermining Confederation technology for months. All ships, he broadcast frantically. Secure all human personnel immediately. They are saboteurs. But it was too late. Throughout the fleet, human saboteurs were completing their final tasks. Power systems collapsed entirely. Weapon batteries exploded from internal overloads. Navigation computers crashed completely. The mighty Confederation fleet found itself scattered, crippled, and fighting an enemy that had turned their own technology against them. And Earth was just getting started. 3 weeks after the battle, Commander Vextar sat in a detention facility on Luna, staring through reinforced windows at the Earth below. The blue and green world looked exactly the same as it had in his academy lectures, but everything else had changed. His mighty fleet was gone. Some ships had been destroyed in combat. Others had surrendered when their systems failed completely. A few had limped away into deep space, carrying news of the disaster back to Confederation space. The Yao, primitive humans, had not only survived the extermination attempt, but had captured or destroyed most of the attacking force. Worse, they had done it using the Confederation's own technology and the knowledge gained from enslaved human technicians. Vextar had spent his entire career believing in alien superiority over primitive species. Now he was a prisoner of the species he had tried to exterminate, and they were treating him better than he had ever treated his human slaves. A door chimed softly, and Admiral Chen entered the room. The human commander carried a datapad and looked tired but satisfied. Commander Vextar, she said, settling into a chair across from him. I wanted to personally thank you for your contribution to our victory. Vextar looked at her with confusion. What do you mean? Your academy course on human extermination was extremely educational, Chen replied. We learned about Confederation military doctrine, fleet compositions, and strategic thinking. That knowledge proved invaluable in planning our defense. How? Did you? Vextar began, then stopped as understanding dawned. The maintenance worker. Lee Junho, yes, Chen confirmed. Former submarine commander in the Korean Navy. He spent 3 months in your academy, learning everything your instructors could teach about how to destroy humanity. Then he shared that knowledge with our defense planners. Vextar felt a crushing sense of defeat. His own arrogance had provided the enemy with the intelligence they needed to defeat him. But the real lesson, Chen continued, came from watching how your people treated our captured personnel. You saw skilled engineers, scientists, and military officers as primitive slaves suitable only for manual labor. That assumption gave us access to every critical system in your infrastructure. I do not understand, Vextar said quietly. Why are you telling me this? Chen leaned forward, her expression becoming serious. Because the galaxy needs to understand what really happened here. This was not a victory of human technology over alien technology. This was a victory of human adaptability over alien arrogance. She activated her datapad, showing images from across Confederation space. The news of your defeat has spread throughout the galaxy. Several member species are questioning the wisdom of the extermination policy. The Ethereal Collective and the Silicon Architects have formally withdrawn from military operations against primitive worlds. Vextar watched the images with growing understanding. The defeat of the extermination fleet had done more than save humanity. It had shattered the Confederation's image of invincibility. More importantly, Chen continued, we have been in contact with other enslaved human populations throughout Confederation territory. Many of them have been offered repatriation, but some have chosen to remain as Earth's representatives and intelligence network. You are building a spy network, Vextar realized. We are building relationships, Chen corrected. The humans working in your facilities are no longer invisible slaves. They are skilled professionals who understand your technology better than most of your own people. That makes them valuable partners for species that want to learn and grow rather than simply dominate. Chen stood up and moved to the window, looking out at the bustling activity in Earth's orbital space. Construction ships were building new platforms using hybrid human-alien technology. Diplomatic vessels from a dozen different species waited in organized traffic patterns. The galaxy is changing, Commander, she said. Species that were once considered too primitive for Confederation membership are demanding equal representation. The rigid hierarchy that placed advanced species above primitive ones is breaking down. Vextar joined her at the window, watching alien ships work alongside human vessels. What happens now? That depends on your people, Chen replied. Earth is proposing a new form of galactic government, one based on cooperation rather than domination. Species would be judged by their contributions, not their technology level. The Draconian Empire will never accept such terms, Vextar said with certainty. Perhaps not, Chen agreed. But many other species are interested. The aquatic depths see the benefits of diverse thinking. The crystalline hives value the innovation that comes from multiple perspectives. Even some factions within your own empire are questioning the old ways. She turned to face him directly. We are offering you a choice, Commander. You can return to Confederation space and report that humanity was lucky to survive your attack. You can maintain the fiction that primitive species are inherently inferior. Or, Vextar asked. Or you can tell the truth, Chen said. You can explain that the defeat came not from luck or accident, but from underestimating the capabilities of beings you dismissed as inferior. You can help your people understand that diversity of thought and experience makes civilization stronger, not weaker. Vextar was quiet for a long moment, considering her words. His entire worldview had been shattered by the events of the past weeks. Everything he had been taught about primitive species had proven wrong. There is something else you should know, Chen said, activating her datapad again. We found him. The display showed a familiar figure working in what appeared to be a maintenance bay. Li Junho looked exactly as he had during his months at the academy, cleaning equipment while alien supervisors ignored him. After the battle, we traced the quantum signatures from his original transmission, Chen explained. He is currently aboard the Confederation research vessel Infinite Knowledge, still working as a maintenance technician, still invisible to his captors. You could retrieve him, Vextar observed. Yes, Chen agreed, but he has chosen to remain in place. From his position, he can monitor Confederation research projects and scientific developments. He has become our eyes and ears in the heart of your civilization. Vextar felt a chill of understanding. How many others? Hundreds, Chen replied simply. Human engineers, scientists, and technicians scattered throughout Confederation space. All of them previously dismissed as primitive slaves. All of them, now serving as Earth's diplomatic and intelligence network. We created our own downfall, Vextar said quietly. You created an opportunity, Chen corrected. The question now is whether your people will learn from this experience or repeat the same mistakes with other species. A soft chime indicated that visiting time was ending. Chen gathered her datapad and prepared to leave. Commander, she said as she reached the door, you will be repatriated to Confederation space next week. What you do with the knowledge you have gained here will determine the future relationship between our species. After she left, Vextar remained at the window, watching the impossible sight of human and alien vessels working together in space, above Earth. The primitive world that was supposed to be reduced to radioactive debris had instead become the center of a new kind of galactic civilization. A week later, Vextar stood on the bridge of a Confederation transport vessel, preparing to return to his homeworld, but he was not the same officer who had confidently led an extermination fleet to what should have been an easy victory. In his possession was a complete record of everything that had happened. The sabotage operations, the network of skilled human operatives, the truth about why the mighty Confederation fleet had been defeated by a single primitive world. More importantly, he carried a message from Admiral Chen to the Confederation leadership. An offer of alliance between equals, a proposal for a new kind of galactic government based on cooperation rather than domination. As the transport ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying him back toward Confederation territory, Vexitar made his decision about what he would tell his superiors. The truth. The galaxy needed to know that humanity had not won through luck or accident. They had won because they possessed something the Confederation had forgotten: the ability to learn, adapt, and grow stronger through adversity. And they had proven that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. Back on Earth, Lee Junho continued his work aboard the Confederation research vessel, Infinite Knowledge. To his alien supervisors, he remained nothing more than a maintenance worker who cleaned equipment and emptied waste containers. But in the quiet moments between his assigned duties, he continued to observe, learn, and transmit intelligence back to Earth. The human network throughout Confederation space remained active and invisible, ready to respond to whatever challenges the galaxy might present. The age of human extermination courses was over. The age of human integration had begun, and the aliens were finally beginning to understand that dismissing any species as primitive was a mistake they could not afford to make again. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again, not because humans were the strongest or most advanced species, but because they had proven themselves to be the most adaptable. In the end, that had made all the difference.